Explain to people, though, the tactic used in the past. We don't doubt that it may be used again in relation to this sort of sacrificial use of their own civilians, the blaming, in this case particularly, of Israel, and then this war on propaganda, how quickly that is fanned, particularly now in the online social world, to get around. It doesn't matter then if the truth comes out 24 hours down the track. It's established as a truth that this rocket was from Israel.
So Hamas's, key performance indicator is developing international outrage. And really their strategy, I think, is to try to see spontaneous uprisings, so-called in the Arab street, of protests at bad Israeli behaviour. And then the other thing I'd say, Peter, is, yes, there are 150 Israeli hostages in Gaza, about that number, but there are actually over 2 million Palestinian hostages in Gaza, and they are hostage to Hamas, which rules with an iron rod and has not the least compunction in seeing Palestinians killed in order to support this idea of building rage against Israel. Hamas, I think, wants to broaden the war, to bring in Hezbollah in Israel's north from Lebanon, maybe Syria, perhaps other countries. They want to try and turn this into a general Arab war against Israel. I think they'll fail in that, but almost everything that happens, even an accidental Hamas rocket landing on Palestinians by mistake, can be spun. And Hamas knows how to do it. They're very quick on social media, and they know they get a pretty easy run with a lot of international media as well. And so in that way, they will try and control the media space. Whereas Israel, which frankly is a more decent democratic country, went through a formal investigation of the incident to determine that it wasn't one of their weapons. And all those things take time when you're actually interested in telling the truth, not just spinning things to your own advantage.
Are you surprised by the comments today, though, from Labor MPs? I mean, we've got people on the front bench. We had some protests out the front. I said we're not even 2 weeks on from the tragedy in southern Israel, but there feels like a real shift in the government's rhetoric.
Yes, I think there's a couple of things which really come to mind. One is simply that the government is losing control. If every Labor front bench member feels that it's their prerogative to now run a commentary on what's going on in the Middle East, this is going to be very problematic from the point of view of coherent Australian foreign policy. And I think what we're seeing coming out in part from last weekend is that the government has now lost a sense of central authority to keep its members in line. That's a problem. On the Israel-Palestine issue itself, I think there is, frankly, a challenge to Labor here, which is not to confuse electorate politics driven by their perception of what Australian Muslim communities might want versus the morally right thing and the strategically right thing, which is to support democratic Israel, a country with whom we have cultural, historical, people-to-people and strategic similarities. I think this is going to create an enormous management challenge for the government in the weeks to come.
Given all the focus on the Middle East, given we've been preoccupied with Ukraine, how's China in all of this? I mean, if you want to be brutal, given their world domination aspirations, given they want Taiwan back in the China fold, this is a pretty opportunistic time for them, given the state of the president's grip on reality as well.
I think there is... so here we have a second test case for China to examine military conflict and to see, draw lessons from it for their own purposes. More broadly, I think China has a problem, which is that it's become a friend of Iran. And Iran is really the puppet master controlling Hamas as well as Hezbollah. And it's interesting, Peter, that, China now emerges with its closest friends, Iran, Russia, North Korea. These are difficult partners to control. That's a headache for Xi Jinping. On the Taiwan point, I think the real risk here is that maybe the Chinese will consider, here's an opportunity. America is spread thin. 2 carrier battle groups deployed to the Eastern Mediterranean. You know, there's potentially a window of opportunity here. And I guess the lesson for the Americans is you can't say you're going to put priority on Asia. America's a global power with global interests. It's got to be able to handle Asia, Europe, the Middle East all at the same time. And that means to say it needs to grow its military capability.
As we need to grow ours. Peter Jennings, thank you.